Good morning. Welcome back to my docuseries on how fathers can win their child custody case. I am Father X. Let's get to it. It took me over 3 years, but I won primary custody of my son in family court. I had to move mountains, and now I want to teach you what I learned and how I did it, because I know that the system is rigged against fathers. Today, we're going to talk about the hidden costs of family court. They can add up to a boatload of money. And when I started, nobody told me about these. So now I'm telling you, because whether or not you spend tons of money on a lawyer, you also need to spend money on some of these things. So you need to plan. Before we do that, let's take a step back to look at the total set of topics I plan to review with you. In episode 1, the introduction, I shared the overall game plan of what you need to know. Let's take another quick look. In episodes 2, we discussed custody, orders of protection, and restraining orders. In episodes 3, we are now covering choosing an attorney and minimizing spending. In the coming days, we'll discuss how to be nice in court. And I'm not talking about the simpleton idea of just playing nice. I'll be talking about strategic and intentional actions aimed at undermining the judge's bias. We'll get into the best interest of the child used in determining custody. You'll be living and breathing this during your entire trial process, so I need you to master it. We'll discuss the first day in court and overall trial timeline for 3+ years. Mediation, criminal allegations, your mental preparation and managing your anger and depression about family court, your defensive fortress to protect yourself from false allegations, researching appellate case law on Google, which is relatively easy and totally crucial, children's services, the police, and the DV hotline, that's the domestic violence hotline, the forensic evaluation, your witnesses and hers, your case, evidence, testimony, and trial strategy, your cross-examination and hers. Because there are so many topics, I want you to subscribe so that I can keep releasing new videos and you get notifications and watch them. You and I have a lot of work ahead of us so that you can fight for equal or primary custody of your kids and to be treated like an equal human being. Let's get back to this current topic, choosing an attorney and minimizing spending, or going pro se. In episode 3A, we discussed choosing your lawyer, and I provided interview questions you should ask them. We discussed the major weaknesses of family lawyers in episode 3B. We covered how to save money on family lawyers in episode 3C. Now, let's talk about the secret hidden costs of family court. When you start the court process, you will be shocked by the hourly billing rates of lawyers. We saw that in the prior episode 3B. But nobody tells you about the secret, hidden costs of the custody trial process, which can be expensive. You need to know the fully loaded cost of the court process so that you can also figure out how much to set aside for your lawyer's fees, if any. If the court orders a forensic psychologist to evaluate both parents, this may cost in the neighborhood of $20,000 to $30,000. And this may be split between you and the mother. The judge will decide who pays what percentage of the cost. Why is a forensic evaluator important? I'll give you both sides of this. Most people in family court use the cliche that a forensic evaluation is a detailed psychological analysis to help determine who is best suited to be the custodial parent and how much visitation would be appropriate. But in reality, it's strategically much more profound. In my case, I found the forensic analysis to be extremely valuable, even though it cost almost $30,000. My judge's words, actions, and her lack of effort in trying to figure out the real truth made it clear to me that the judge's goal was to rubber stamp the mother for custody and just move on, without any intelligent thought about the best interests of our son. I had to overcome the judge's mindset. A forensic evaluator was assigned to be the court's witness on the case, and not the father's or mother's witness. This psychologist did thorough research on the best interests of our child. This person spoke to our couples counselors and therapists to learn that the mother was the perpetrator of domestic violence, and the evaluator conveyed that fact to the court clearly. The forensic report also established that I was the better parent to handle our son's emotional and psychological needs. So it really helped to have a different, neutral opinion to contradict the judge's biased opinion. Otherwise, the judge could have just rubber-stamped the mother in her final custody order. There's also a theory in family court that judges often rule in favor of the parent that comes across better in the forensic evaluation. It's not always the case, but I need you to know the unwritten rules of this court culture. This is why, in a future episode, we'll talk more about the forensic evaluation. On the other hand, many parents complain that the forensic evaluators are corrupt or incompetent. I have never seen that, but I do want to share it with you so that you go into this eyes wide open. I suspect the key difference between good versus bad forensic evaluators is how much work they do for family court. I think that if a psychologist makes most of their money on their private practice and only sometimes do court evaluations, then you're more likely to get an opinion from an intelligent and neutral person. Evaluators who do most of their work for family court may be more prone to just being cogs in the machine that rubber stamps the mother. You may hire a second forensic psychologist just as a consultant on the side to review the official forensic report. This consultant may cost a few $1,000s to read the report, evaluate it for you and your lawyer, and recommend questioning strategies for you and your lawyer when you cross-examine the court's official forensic psychologist in court. And if you then choose to have this second evaluator testify as an expert witness, that may cost thousands or tens of thousands more. Prices can vary greatly. During my court proceedings over 3 years, I paid about $15,000 for court transcripts overall. Even though it cost a lot of money, they really helped immensely. I think it's important to get court transcripts of each appearance in court. You would get transcripts for each of the 15-minute appearances every month where very little happens. And then you would get the transcripts during trial for every person that's testifying. These are often 2 to 3 hours of testimony with a lot being said back and forth. You'll take notes during this testimony, but you can't take notes fast enough. In addition, after a few days, you'll forget most of what was said. In my case, I testified approximately 14 times for about 28 hours. So after a bunch of these trial dates, that are all months apart, you have little hope of remembering what everybody said. And after the forensic evaluator, the mother, and her witnesses testify, you will quickly get the transcripts after each date. You will use these to prepare your list of questions for cross-examination. And when you testify, your lawyer will read the transcripts and ask you, on the stand, "On this date, the mother testified and said XYZ. Is this stuff true?" And you will say, "No, this is not true. There's what the mother said, and then there's reality. In reality, A, B, C happened." So to contradict the mother on the witness stand, you'll need the transcripts with her exact quotes. Nobody in court will remember the quotes, and the transcripts are the official record that you would use. In addition, when you write your final summation after trial to summarize the points you proved, you will be quoting the official transcripts. This was a central part of my strategy and a major part of my victory. Also, if you need to appeal the judge's decision to a higher court, you will use the transcripts as the official record. There are 50 states, and each court will vary in terms of how they provide transcripts. I've heard of, but I've not seen, that some courts don't record their sessions and transcripts are not available. I don't really understand how that's possible, since you need transcripts for the appeals process. I have seen 2 transcript processes. First, some courts have audio recordings of the sessions, and then you have to find a third-party transcription typing service, on Google, for example, and you ask the court clerk to send the audio files to this third party. The third party will type it up, for $2 to $5 per page, or whatever they charge. A short session might be 10 pages, but a full trial date of 2 to 3 hours might be 100 pages. You should ask them for a 30 to 40% discount off their standard fees, in exchange for your promise to do this for every trial date and to only use them instead of using their competitors. My transcribers agreed to this discount. If you transcribe court proceedings once, it may cost a few $100s, but when you have court proceedings for 1 to 4 years, this adds up. Second, another scenario is where there's a court stenographer in the room typing notes. In this case, you'd go to the court stenographer and ask her to give you a copy of the transcripts. She'll quote you her fee for this service, which may also be a few dollars per page. Be nice to the court stenographer. Be nice. I will explain later when we do the video on how to be nice in court. The Guardian Ad Litem is another attorney in the family court process who the court may appoint to represent your child, as opposed to the lawyers who represent the mother or the father. I have only heard horror stories about the Guardian Ad Litem. If your child is between 5 and 17 years old, I think the court is more likely to try to appoint a guardian, as opposed to a guardian for an infant or a toddler that cannot speak. There are 50 states, and they all vary in their practice. However, you should quickly try to find out, first, is this mandatory? If it's mandatory, then this can be a very expensive proposition. If having a guardian is optional, then you probably want to vote against having one. You can tell the judge that, first, if you're going to have a psychologist perform a forensic evaluation, then the forensic evaluator can speak to the children and understand the children's needs and best interests. And secondly, given the overall costs of forensic evaluations and legal fees and child support for one family that's now living in 2 homes, that the guardian is financially impossible. I'd argue that your family needs to save for your children's college education, and a guardian is just an extra, unnecessary cost in the worst interests of the child's future. Even if the guardian costs $20,000, and you have $20,000, it doesn't mean you can afford it. You have that money for your children and their college education. You and the mother should join forces on at least this one issue. Second, who pays for the guardian? It's likely that the court will make either you or the mother or both of you share for the cost of the guardian. Sometimes the court pays for it, especially with poorer parents. The key for you to keep in mind here is that you really don't need an extra lawyer to determine the best interests of your children, especially since family lawyers are incompetent. Guardians are often the same lawyers that represent fathers or mothers in other cases, so a guardian is just another problem for you to deal with in court and another useless expense. I want you to proactively plan to fight against it instead of having it forced upon you. Every 4 to 6 weeks, you may have a 15-minute court appearance with a judge. You may be sitting around for 3 hours until you're called, and then you might need another hour or 2 to decompress from just being brutalized in court. If you're paid hourly, you lose money for those court appearances, unless you take vacation days. And when you have actual trial dates, you may need to take off the day before to prepare. And you may need to take extra vacation days where you prepare for your case, even if you prepare on nights and weekends. You'll be losing work, time, and money. Nobody tells you this stuff, so I will. The next topic in this docuseries will be how to be nice in court and the best interests of the child. These are crucial for you to understand. These might be the darkest days of your life, and I'm making these educational videos to help you navigate this nightmare. If you subscribe, you can get updates when I post more videos in this docuseries. Thank you for liking, subscribing, and sharing with your friends who are in a similar situation. If you like, subscribe, and share, it'll also help the YouTube algorithm get this message out to more fathers in our position.